Here we are at the southern Cape of Africa, the very bottom tip of the entire continent. Now, Africa is truly a land of incredible animals, particularly its predators. There are crocodiles, leopards, hyenas, lions, wild dogs, all these awesome predators, but there is one predator that stands above all here in the continent of Africa, and it's not on the land. It's in the sea. This is a predator so awesome that the word great is literally in its name. This is the great white shark, and this is Voenus Ventures. My name is Dan Voenus. I'm a wildlife filmmaker, naturalist, and adventurer, and over the past several years I've traveled all over, searching for some of the world's most incredible animals to get in front of the camera. Now, in this multi-part epic, I'm embarking on my greatest adventure yet, traveling halfway across the world to the continent of Africa, where I will encounter some of the most incredible creatures on the entire planet. This is Voenus Ventures, Africa. The southern tip of Africa is a beautiful place. This region, where the Indian and Atlantic Oceans mix, produces cool breeze, blue waters, and countless incredible animals. One area of note is Mossel Bay on the Western Cape. This beautiful town is a popular destination for travelers, both human and animal. Perhaps the most famous of these travelers is none other than the mighty great white shark, who stop here to feed on the bay's healthy seal population. I managed to come across one on this pristine beach. This is a young Cape fur seal. More closely related to sea lions than true seals, fur seals like this guy are quite common along the South African coastline. You can see this little guy doesn't look too good. He's here all alone, and he's allowing me to get much closer than I should. However, I don't see any sign of injury or sickness on him. He looks otherwise very healthy, so I can only assume that he's just exhausted. He swam out a bit too far from his group and was chased to the beach by a predator. Sure enough, we see a dark shape out in the surf. It can only be a great white. While he's likely just resting on the beach recovering his strength, we notify a local sea mammal rescue so they can better assess his condition. We then head to the docks to hop on a boat and try and find some of these great whites. We link up with a local charter company that specializes in finding and filming sharks, having worked with even National Geographic and Discovery before. When I see the dive cage, I'm a bit reassured until I see just how bent some of these bars are. Great whites can weigh up to a ton in weight, and when they get up to speed, they can hit like a truck. Nonetheless, we climb on board and set out. The boat takes us to a rocky outcrop called Seal Island, and it's easy to see why. This small island is home to hundreds of fur seals, all in the same spot, and it's suddenly clear why this place is a hotspot for sharks. Great whites migrate thousands of miles across oceans and between continents, so places like this act as a bit of a truck stop for the sharks to stop, rest, and fill up on food. We anchor off the island and drop the cage. One of the boat crew begins mixing a bucket of chum, a special mixture of fish blood, fish oil, and fish pieces meant to attract sharks. All sharks have a phenomenal sense of smell, and great whites are no different. This chum will mimic the scent of an injured or dying animal, which will bring them in no problem. It smells pretty rank to me, but it must be delicious to the sharks, because it isn't long before we see a dark shape circling the boat. They toss a bunch of fish heads on a rope in front of the cage, and I quickly suit up in a very thick wetsuit. This water averages around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but that's just how these sharks like it. Many of the most common places to find great whites are usually in colder, deeper waters, and this is no different. I hop into the cage, and the cold water hits instantly. However, the cold is soon pushed out of my mind as I see that dark shape getting closer. For as blue as this water is, visibility is pretty poor, and anything further than a few yards away is completely obscured. Soon, a fin breaks the surface, and then Great whites are the only sharks known to exhibit this feeding behavior, known as breaching. They attack from underneath, striking by surprise and bursting out of the water. It is even more spectacular when they attack something like a seal or sea lion, in which they strike so hard that their entire body launches into the air. Very little is known about great white behavior, but this is probably the most well-known and well-documented aspect of their lives. And boy, is it absolutely spectacular. These sharks keep coming again and again, and my heart is pounding with adrenaline. When suddenly, the shark slams into the cage with the force of a truck. While it shakes my whole body, what surprises me is the horrible, loud scraping noise it makes. Sharks have very rough, thick skin, covered in small tooth-like structures known as denticles. This makes their skin rougher than sandpaper, and results in a terrible scraping sound when it rubs against the cage.
Oh, cool.
Then, one of the shark manages to grab hold of the bait. However, despite the sharks bumping into the cage occasionally, they show very little notice of me. These bumps are accidental in nature, otherwise the sharks pay me no attention. This water is filled with chum, the sharks are undoubtedly stirred up, and I am a big chunky piece of meat, and yet they really aren't interested. But this kind of makes sense. Great whites, like all sharks, actually don't usually target humans as food. Of all the reported great white attacks throughout the world, only around 16% of them are fatal. Now, it's obvious to me here that if a great white wanted to kill and eat someone, it would have no trouble. These animals are immense, powerful, and lightning fast, and they're equipped with massive jaws lined with razor-sharp serrated teeth. And yet, so many of their victims survive. That, combined with the fact that less than 100 people are bitten by sharks every year, really shows that these animals truly have no interest in killing or eating people. Most recorded incidents are believed to be exploratory in nature, meaning the sharks are just curious about humans and attempting to investigate. They just happen to use their toothy mouths since they don't have hands. Being this close to these powerful, incredible animals, being able to share the water with these apex predators is indescribable. There is so much about these sharks that we don't know, so much that scientists are still trying to figure out or are only just now understanding. The only reliable way to directly observe great whites in the wild is to draw them in with chum and bait. But this only allows us to see how they act when they're hunting or feeding. So much of their lives is spent far out to sea, deep underwater, and away from the eyes of science. We are only just beginning to understand how old they get. Mating has only been directly observed in 2020, and we have never seen a great white give birth. No one knows why they travel so far across oceans, and their social behavior is still largely a mystery. Researchers across the world are doing great work studying these magnificent sharks, but if they are to fully understand them, we need to conserve them. With so little concrete information about them, it's incredibly difficult to accurately estimate how many are left. Despite living almost everywhere in every ocean across the world, great white shark numbers have dropped significantly over the last several decades. They are now listed as vulnerable by the IUCN. I wish it was just one problem leading to their decline, but the truth is that great whites face threats from multiple different angles. Like all sea life, they are threatened by things such as pollution, oil spills, and changing global temperatures as a result of climate change. In addition, they also fall victim to nets, both those used for fishing as well as to protect beaches. Nets kill thousands of animals every year, including sharks of all kinds, rays, dolphins, whales, other fish, and endangered sea turtles. Sharks are killed in the tens of thousands by commercial fishing operations as wasteful bycatch. In addition to the horrific threat presented by nets, great whites and other sharks are also affected by much more targeted dangers from humans. Multiple governments throughout the world have implemented culling programs, following a misguided belief that intentionally killing sharks will make beaches and swimmers safer. However, perhaps the biggest threat to sharks is the illegal fin trade. Shark finning is widespread throughout the world and is done mostly for the purpose of shark fin soup and traditional Chinese medicine. The process involves catching the sharks, cutting off their fins, and tossing them back alive to die a slow death. It is estimated that millions and millions of sharks are killed every year due to finning, and it's likely the biggest contributor to worldwide shark decline. Over the last several decades, sharks have been seen as dangerous, man-eating monsters, and the great white has become the poster figure for their villainy. Films like Jaws and countless horror B-movies have created a culture of fear and hatred toward these animals. However, they are horribly misunderstood creatures, and these misconceptions actively harm attempts to study and conserve them.
I'm not a big fan of sharks either. I have people calling me up, sir, we have a fund to save the shark. It's called Save the Shark. I say, no thank you.
Great white sharks are by far one of the most spectacular, incredible animals I have ever encountered on my adventures. And being able to witness them in action in person makes it so much clearer to me the importance of protecting them. My biggest hope is that this incredible footage can convince you of this as well, and that you would be willing to help take up the fight with me to protect our ocean's greatest predator. You know, there's nothing quite like relaxing after a great adventure with a beautiful shoreline, some crystal blue water. It just relaxes me. Oh, you think I'm done with my African adventure, don't you? It wouldn't be Voenus Ventures if I didn't find some incredible reptiles. And I wouldn't travel halfway around the world without seeing a few of them in person. Africa is home to some of the world's most dangerous snakes and some of the world's largest crocodiles. So you know I'm gonna get some in front of the camera for you guys, and I'm gonna get as close as I can to them. Stay tuned for part 4.